Yom Kippur is a day we taste death. Wearing the white of the kittel, our death clothes, preparing for our vidui, our confessions, we are meant to feel our mortality. As we invite Vicki Lander, Tali Light, and Torah Oglander to come and light our candles, we recognize the loss of their beloveds, Jack Oglander, Aaliyah Light, and Vicki's father, Ed Lander, all of blessed memory. Jack was a past president of this congregation who taught us many lessons about integrity and dignity and unconditional love. Jack knew what was real and lived with grace in that space. Jack also taught us about the importance of the pause. He taught us that there are times to take a breath and think before we speak. Take time before we respond. You see, in the pause, seeds are planted, seeds that take time. The flowers we've been enjoying this year were planted last season by Vicki and Jack. These holy day lights are for those who have planted seeds for us and trusted us to grow them, even if they could not stay in this world with us. They are also for those who died, victims of hate and horror and Holocaust, those who had their seeds of a future stolen from them and are counting on us to grow them in resistance. And these lights are for those who have given us this moment to pause and remember not just their deaths, but the gifts of their lives, that when this day is over, we will be ready to live more fully, love more fiercely, because we remember them. Averot shebein adam lemakom, Yom HaKippurim mechaper. Averot shebein adam lechavaro, ein Yom HaKippurim mechaper, ad sheyiratze et chavero. We can read together on page 97. For transgressions against God, the Day of Atonement atones, but for transgressions of one human being against another, the Day of Atonement does not atone until we have made peace one with the other. בישיבה של מעלה ובישיבה של מטה, על דעת המקום ועל דעת הקהל, אנו מתירים להתפלל עם העבריינים. In the sight of the Holy One and before this congregation, no matter how far some of us may have transgressed by departing from our highest selves, we pray on this night as one, on this night as the gates of repentance, the gates of tshuva, open for us. When my friend, the Reverend Tracy Blackman, says, "Susan, I feel you," I know she gets it. She gets me. She understands that in my pain and my doubt, in my grief and in yours, I want to be a good person, a better person each day. In our personal grief and in the collective, the grief we all feel in this post-9/11 world, a world of pandemic and politics that cause so much pain. Resistance is felt in showing up and in acts of loving kindness. I feel you, my dear friends. I feel you, family. I feel you, beloved community. I feel you as we try so hard to hold on to what is dear and at the same time be able to accept the change that comes with living. The one thing we can count on is the inevitable change that comes with time passing. I feel you as these days of awe dare us to still believe that we can tip the scales of righteousness over injustice, of truth over illusion and disinformation and big lies, of love over those who hate us without even knowing us. On this night of all nights, we should be together to renew our resolve to tip the scales for good in this new year. On this night of all nights, we are meant to feel the compassion of our collective community as we see familiar faces and welcome new ones with radical hospitality into our Sukkot Shalom, our shelter of peace. On this night of all nights, we need to feel each other's presence, to have the strength and the courage to seek forgiveness for our own sins as well as take on the sins of all humanity. On this night of all nights, our sanctuaries are meant to be full with those of us who feel the call of tradition, the connection to community, and the promise that this spiritual practice will deliver us into a better year. When I decided that this would be my last high holy days to stand before you, I imagined telling this to you on this night of all nights when I could see your faces. Though we've been in so many locations over these 37 years, there are those of you I have come to count on being here on Kol Nidre. I miss you on this night of all nights. I'm not retiring. I still have a lot to do. I'm not even becoming emeritus quite yet, but I am going to begin over these next few months to shift in my responsibilities. Like so many of my baby boomer generation, I feel that it's time to make more space for the next generations and to use what I have learned to carve out a new chapter. To be clear, I'm not retiring quite yet. I'm still here for life cycle events and an occasional class or service. Jim and I have loved collaborating on the Psalms and other projects, and we hope to offer more to this community that has quite remarkably grown online and in person through this pandemic. I am shifting in my responsibilities, but I'll say it again, I'm not yet retiring, and as I deliver this, my last Kol Nidre message, I find myself remembering my very first one. In my third and fourth years of the 5-year rabbinical school program that Jim and I went through together, I had the privilege of serving Temple B'nai Israel of Jackson, Tennessee. It was 1979, and they did not want a woman. In fact, a few years before, they were supposed to get the very first woman rabbi. Rabbi Sally Presand was supposed to be their student rabbi, but they sent a message back to the college and they said, "We'd rather have no one than that woman." That year, the seminary sent a man. And when they tried the same shenanigans with me, the school said, "Take her or you won't get anyone." I went, bracing for a disaster. But that wonderful congregation took me into their homes and their hearts, and they became wonderful teachers and friends, even until today. But for that first high holidays over 40 years ago, I was prepared for Rosh Hashanah, but I can admit it now, I did not have a sermon for Kol Nidre. I had no thoughtful reflection to honor this community that had been gathering since the 1850s to be a Jewish presence for so many who were the only Jews in their small Tennessee towns. And I went to sleep the night before thinking that for the first time in 130 years, this congregation would have a rabbi who would have nothing to say for Yom Kippur. And that night, I dreamt a new version of an old Hasidic tale. The old Hasidic tale tells the story of the Baal Shem Tov. When the rabbi saw misfortune threatening the Jews, he would go to a secret place in the forest, light a fire, and say a special prayer, and the crisis would be averted. Subsequent rabbis confronted similar crises in the same way, but one forgot the prayer, another forgot how to light the fire, another forgot the location of the secret place in the forest. The rabbis did what they could remember, and the misfortunes were overcome. But finally, a terrible crisis came to a rabbi many, many generations later. He sat with his head in his hands and lamented, "I am unable to light the fire. I don't know the prayer. I can't even find my way to the place in the forest. All I can do is tell the story, and this must be sufficient." The Hasidic tale claims that telling the story was enough. But not in my dream. In my dream, the story grew feet, and we found our way back to the secret place in the forest. We lit the fires that helped others find us there. Fires of light and inspiration, fires of passion and purpose. We remembered the prayers, not rote prayers, but prayers of longing and desire that we dared to name. Prayers for healing that would keep our hearts open in the most hopeless of times, and prayers that we would sing and swing, prayers we could dance to. We made sure that there was room for everyone and that everyone felt welcome and respected. Every child saw others who looked like them, and the elders saw every child as their own. Misfortunes came, but the loving arms of the community carried us through the valleys of the shadows, and we learned to sit with our sadness and make space for simcha, for joy. And the stories, they told themselves as we cycled through the holy days and we felt how each one was connected to the next. And from New Year to New Year, we found we would never be in the same place. For our stories would grow and we would be better and kinder and more compassionate and forgiving each year. In my dream, it was not enough to tell the story. We became the story. Our souls were on fire, and our practice had purpose and passion. We dared to believe that our prayers had the power to protect and provide a path to healing, if not always for the body, surely for the spirit. And that was my message to the dear people of Jackson, Tennessee, 44 years ago. that it was no longer enough to tell the stories. We had to find our way back to the secret place in the forest and light the fires of faith and offer the prayers that would get us up out of our seats to sing and dance and resist despair and be held by our tradition and never be afraid to reinvent ourselves again and again with something new and be ready for the next big thing. For we are a people that have had many secret places, many prayers, poetry, song, and different ways to dance, and more stories than stars in the heavens. And I am so grateful for the almost 40 years that I have been part of this story with you. And I'm not done. I have some things that I still want to do. I want to work with Maxine and Charlene and the teachers at our early childhood center, The Nest, who are building a feminist curriculum with the principles of critical race theory guiding us. If we are going to change the world, it will be through the children who know better. Our children who know in their DNA that racism is wrong and that to change it, we need to be able to see and change the structures and institutions that keep racism alive at all costs. I'll also be working with the Ashrei Foundation, CRC's new nonprofit for social justice. Many of you know that Sue McCollum and her sons, Michael and Brian Epstein, gave us a very generous gift and a huge challenge to create a nonprofit to deepen our social justice work at CRC. We are calling it the Ashrei Foundation, named for the first word of the first psalm. It's usually translated as happy, Ashrei Ha'ish. Happy is the person, but no, another meaning for Ashrei is forward. Our work will be to engage our talented members and community to alleviate suffering and, like so many of the urban churches we work with, to use our nonprofit to sit at interfaith and community justice tables to be able to receive funding and support that are not always open to religious institutions. Ashrei will allow us to expand our reach beyond the Jewish and the religious communities to do the work of tikkun, the work of repair, that we are called to do by our very core values. We are calling it Ashrei, forward, because this is our hope, to keep moving forward, building bridges with our relationships and our resources across all the divides and divisions that are destroying our dreams. With the trust in the relationships that we have established over these years together and the friendships we have formed, we have an opportunity at this moment to stir up some good trouble. And Ashrei will also help us have the structure to listen, because it's time to listen to other people's hurts. It's time for more understanding. It's time to grow the community of people who listen to each other's heartaches and heart hopes and find ways to help each other as we struggle with this pandemic and other challenges to living that are with us every day. I know that there are people on the extremes who will never listen, who are dangerous fanatics. But I also know that there are many more in the middle who have their own stories, their own reasons for thinking and acting as they do. And when we listen to each other, we do find that we are willing to make room for the common good and put self-interest aside to be part of something that is higher and holier. It's time for modeling cooperation over competition for our children. In this post-9/11 world, children, and are now our pandemic children, have grown up in a world that desperately needs us to turn grief and loss and fear for their very lives into courageous and thoughtful conversations that will build bridges. They need us to stop making excuses for inexcusable acts of terror toward each other and our planet, and understand that we have the tools to lead to creative solutions that lessen the violence and grow the middle, and tip the scales toward reconciliation. It's time to make room for the kind of truth that leads to reconciliation to save their future. So I may be shifting in my responsibilities like so many of my generation. And yes, life is change. Sometimes life brings the most awful of change, the kind of change that changes us, makes it hard for us to live every day. But I am not, and we are not, done yet. And on this Kol Nidre, when we are called to take our vows seriously, on this Kol Nidre, as we prepare to hear our own Chava Polinsky play this melody to open us up to Yom Kippur, our day of soul-searching, reflection, and yearning for meaning, I pray that we let this Kol Nidre prayer and service give us the next 24 hours to disconnect from the world around us so that when we return, it will be with souls renewed and revived and with every sense so awakened that the whole world looks transformed, looks possible, looks like we can take it on and make a difference. So settle in. In a few moments, Chava will take us on a journey through the Kol Nidre prayer. Her playing this ancient melody will lift us up out of the ordinary and remind us that we humans have the capacity to take the ordinary and raise it up to the level of the sacred. And here is my Kol Nidre vow to our children and grandchildren. I feel you. I feel your fear for your future, for the future of our nation, our world, and our planet. And I vow, for as long as I'm able, I will be here to remind you that we can still redeem the future, your future. I vow that I will help you remember that within you is the wisdom to do the right thing and to value and build conscious and compassionate community around you, because we know that we can readjust to a more just world that may have less stuff, but will have more soul. A world where science will save us and learning will help us live together. And love will guide us to do the right thing as we figure out what comes next, a day at a time. I vow that we will be there for you, not giving up, continuing to work for the common good, and believing that in spite of everything, the good in us will win. And remember, we are a people who jump in and participate in writing our stories. We are not spectators, and that the truths that you seek to guide you to be on the right side of history, on the right side of the story, are within you, planted deep within, and no one can take them from you. Take this vow with me, dear friends, beloved community. From this Yom Kippur to the next, that we will do our best to find our way back to the secret places of our longing, of our believing, like the Baal Shem Tov did, that we have the power to avert disaster, that we can save the future. Promise me that with or without me, you will still dare to light the fires of light and inspiration, of passion and purpose, and that our prayers of longing and desire will have such power that many will gather with us to sing and dance and defy the darkness. And as we grow, the good, that we will continue to grow, that we will continue to tell the sacred story of this congregation as we grow and change and have the courage and creativity to transform again and again, that we may ever be a blessing for our children and our grandchildren for many generations to come. From this day of atonement to the next, may we reach it in peace. We make these vows to turn from sin and wrongdoing, to walk in the path of justice and right. Yet we know our weakness, how prone we are to fail. Help us to keep these vows we have made with humility, for we have come to seek pardon and forgiveness. It's a privilege to invite our president, Natalie Schatzman, our treasurer, David Sentnor, and our most spectacular head of our Tikkun Olam committee, Josh Goldman, to open the Ark and to stand with us and hold the Torahs as we hear Alan chant the words of the Kol Nidre.
Kol Nidre v'yasareh v'charameh v'konameh v'chinuyeh v'kinoseh u'shvuot din darna u'yishtabana u'diacharimna v'diasarna shatana miyom kippurim zeh yom kippurim haba aleinu letova kulhon icharatna v'hon kulhon yehon sharan shvikin shvitin beteilin umevutalin la sharirin vela kayamin nidrana la nidre v'yesarana la esare u'shavuatana u'shavuot.
We read at the bottom of 98 together. Let all our vows and oaths, all the promises we make, and the obligations we incur to you, O God, between this Yom Kippur and the next be null and void should we, after honest effort, find ourselves unable to fulfill them, then may we be absolved of them. Knowingly or not, the whole community of Israel and all who live among us have sinned. Let us be forgiven. As in your love you have been patient with this people from the time you led us out of Egypt to the present day, so in your great love may you forgive your people now. And Adonai said, I have pardoned you in response to your plea. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, shehachianu v'kiyamanu v'egianu lazman hazeh. Blessed is the source of all, the presence that fills creation. Thank you for giving us life, for sustaining our lives, and for bringing us to this moment in time. We call each other to prayer with the words of the Baruch Hu.
Thank you, Rabbi Susan. There's a midrash that I always find so impactful this time of year. It says, if you harmed someone a little bit, let it be in your eyes as if you harmed them a lot. If you've done much for someone, let it be in your eyes that you've done little for them. However, if they have done even a little good for you, regard that as considerable. This is Yom Kippur, our day of days set apart for nothing but searching, introspection, and prayers for the strength we need to transform ourselves and the world. If we can get to that difficult place of honest self-criticism around how we act and talk and demand for ourselves a higher ethical bar, while at the same time having more compassion and forgiveness, less judgment towards others, then we can begin to feel, through vulnerability and heightened sensitivity and awareness, how utterly connected we are, truly one with all creation. We will discover that not one of us is alone, that through all our differences, we share a common heartbeat of love and breath and soul. And so let us breathe and sing together the words of Shema Yisrael. This time on Yom Kippur alone, our tradition says, out loud adding that second line, Baruch Shem Kavod, Machuto Leolam Va'ed.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam
Gonna do something a little different tonight. Instead of chanting Ve'ahavta after the Shema in Hebrew, Andrew and Leslie are gonna sing a setting of the English translation of the prayer from the Torah. It's a piece that was written by the late Debbie Friedman, a songwriter who really transformed Jewish music in so many ways. But Thou Shalt Love, this song, this prayer, was the first that she wrote. She was planning a summer camp service, a Jewish camp, and searching to do something a little different, and came up with these chords for the English translation. And in doing so, she set off on a journey that we're all still part of to this day. And so this is Thou Shalt Love.
And thou shalt love Adonai with all of thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all of thy might. And all these words which I command you on this day shall be in thy heart, shall be in thy heart. And thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and thou shalt speak take of them. When thou sittest in thy house, when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, and when thou risest up, and when thou risest up, and thou shalt bind them for a sign upon thy hand, and they shall be for frontlets between thine eyes, and thou shalt write them on the doorpost of thy house, and upon thy gates, and upon thy gates, that ye may remember and do all of my commandments, and be holy unto your God, unto your God, unto your God.
Amen. We're on page 106 to sing our freedom song, our song of liberation, our protest song from the shore of the sea.
מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורתי לא תוסף אל מלכותך, רבניך בוקי הים לפני משה. זיילי, 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 ענו ויאמרו, אדוני ימלוך, אדוני ימלוך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. אדוני ימלוך, אדוני ימלוך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. אדוני ימלוך, אדוני ימלוך, אדוני ימלוך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. אדוני ימלוך, אדוני ימלוך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. לעולם ועד. As you have redeemed Jacob and saved him from arms stronger than his own, so may you redeem all who are oppressed and persecuted. Baruch atah Adonai, Gal Yisrael.
Been studying a little bit of Celtic mythology. And I wish I could say this concept I'm about to talk about with a Gaelic accent, but I wouldn't do it justice. In Celtic mythology, they talk about thin places. Thin place is a place or a moment where the veil between heaven and earth is imperceptibly thin. when you feel utterly alive and present, connected to all, a thin place. Being in that state, according to the Celts, periodically gives us energy. So when we come down to earth from that thin place, we are recharged, renewed, revitalized, so that we can be our most loving and compassionate selves. And so my prayer tonight is that our work that we're going to do in these 24 hours of our day of atonement, day of atonement, during these holy days, this holy time, may our work bring us to many of those thin places during this new year. As we gather in our shelters of peace, perhaps this moment is one of those thin places. Take this soul, living in my skin and bones. Take this soul and let it sing. Yahweh, Yahweh, always pain before a child is born. Yahweh, Yahweh, it's always dark before the dawn. Hashivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'Shalom V'hamidenu Shomreinu L'chaim. Hashivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'Shalom V'hamidenu Shomreinu L'chaim. Allow us to lie and rise in peace and shalom. Allow us to lie and rise in peace. Shalom. Allow us to lie and rise in peace. Shalom. Hashkiven Adonai Eloheinu L'Shalom V'hamidenu Shomreinu L'chaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'Shalom V'hamidenu Shomreinu L'chaim. You know, there's some prayers that become songs, and then there's some songs that become prayers. Everything's gonna be alright. Everything's gotta be alright. Everything's gonna 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 be alright. Ufros Aleinu Sukkot, Sukkot Shlomecha. Ufros Aleinu Sukkot Shlomecha, and cover over us tonight with a Sukkot Shalom, a shelter of peace for you, for those you love. A Sukkot Shalom in a thin place for all creation, for everyone and everything that dwells on earth. May this sacred and holy night be filled with so much peace, so much shalom. Amen.
Thanks, Rabbi Randy. So we move out of the Shema and its blessings, and we continue with Tefillah towards the bottom of page 108. And so I want to share with you a story that was once told of a great rabbi who was leading a prayer service. Within the congregation, there was a young child sitting in the back who could barely read. They didn't know any of the prayers. But as the rabbi led the congregation, the young child was so moved that they wanted to pray. Instead of the words of the prayers, they began to recite the letters of the Aleph Bet, the Hebrew alphabet. Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Daled. They said, Adonai, I don't know the words of the prayers. I only know all of these letters. Please take these letters and arrange them into the right order to make the right words. The rabbi heard the young child's words and stopped all the prayers for the entire congregation. Because of the simple words of this child, the rabbi said, all of our prayers will be heard in the highest reaches of heaven. So as we move into Tefillah for Kol Nidre, each of us brings something special and something unique that is only our prayer. I invite you to take these next few moments to explore the prayer that is within you, as these ancient words and melodies encircle and guide us.
Ya la 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 Adonai. Ya la 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 Sefatai Tita. Ya la 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 Yufi Yakit. Ufi Yakit Leila Teta. Ya la 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 Adonai. Ya la 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 Sefatai Tita. Ya la 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 Ufi Yakit. Ufi Yakit Leila Teta. Ya la 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 Adonai. Ya la 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 Sefatai Tita. Ya la 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 Ufi Yakit. Ufi Yakit Leila Teta. Ya la 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 Adonai. Ya la 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 Sefatai Tita. Ya la 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 Ufi Yakit. Ufi Yakit Tehillah Techa. Ya la 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 Adonai. Ya la 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 Sefatai Tita. Ya la 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 Ufi Yakit. Ufi Yakit Tehillah Techa.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Leah v'Elohei Rachel Ha'el Hagadol Hagibur v'Hanora El Elyon Gomer Chasadim Tovim V'Konei Hakol V'Zocher Chastei Avot V'Imahot Umevi Gula Livnei V'neihem L'ma'an Shemo B'Ahava Melech Ozer U'Moshiach U'Magen Baruch Atah Adonai Magen Avraham V'Ezrat Sarah. Continue on the bottom of page 109 with Zochreinu. May we be remembered.
החפץ בחיים, זוכרנו לחיים, מלך חפץ בחיים, וכותבנו בספר החיים, למענך אלוהים חיים, למענך אלוהים חיים, זוכרנו לחיים, מלך חפץ בחיים, זוכרנו לחיים, מלך חפץ בחיים, וכותבנו בספר החיים, למענך אלוהים חיים, למענך אלוהים חיים.
אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, מוריד הטל, מחכה חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל, ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי hakol. We take a moment for Shalom Rav, for our prayer for peace, with the addition for the High Holy Days, B'Sefer Chaim. May we be written in the book of life for goodness, for blessing, for love, and for health. Shalom Rav.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amecha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amecha Tasim Leolam. Ki ata hu melech adon lechol hashalom. Ki ata hu melech adon lechol hashalom. Le'tov be'einecha levarech et emcha Yisrael bechol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. ברוך אתה אדוני עושה השלום.
Vidui, confessional. I claim my place, part of the world's story, sacrificing every fine, young, old idea that I was given or I thought up myself. I can't bear to hear another cliche or partial solution to perceived problems. We've come undone. We should all be in deep mourning for what we as a people failed to be. And unless we look deep into the mirror and claim its renewal and repair, we commit the future to the same failed set of ideas we inherited and neglected to fix. We may be a noble minority. It's not enough. Better, more, smarter. What if we detached from the concept of sin and attached more to the notion of change? V'al chet shechatanu lefanecha, for how we have failed to change, or be changed, or what we did not change, what we did or what we did not do to clean up, dignify, repair, reclaim. For all that, forgive us, cleanse us, embrace us, lift us, brace us. We have what to do.
Now may it be your will, God of all generations, to forgive all our sins, to pardon all our wrongdoings, and to blot out our transgressions. Ve'al kulam Elohas lichot, slach lanu, machal lanu, kaper lanu. For all of these, God of mercy, forgive us, pardon us, grant us atonement.
Avinu Malkeinu, we have no deeds. Compassionate One, answer us. We have no deeds at all. Hollow vessels we are. Make us righteousness. Make us compassion. Make us peace. I awakened this morning with nothing but my vessel. I placed over my shoulders the yoke of service. Fill me up with stories and songs, poems and acts of loving kindness, acts of righteousness, and save me.
Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Kolenu. Avinu Malkeinu, Chatanu lefanecha. Avinu Malkeinu, Chamol aleinu, Ve'alol aleinu, V'tapeinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Kol Nidre, Erev ra'am me'aleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, kalechol sar umastim me'aleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Kol Shmena, B'Sefer Chaim Tovim. Avinu Malkeinu, Kadosh Aleinu, Kadosh Aleinu, Shalom Torah. Avinu Malkeinu, Malkeinu, Kadesh Aleinu, Shana Tova. Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Kolenu,
The 20th anniversary of September 11th was on Shabbat Teshuvah, the Shabbat between these holy days that demands a teshuvah. Teshuvah is a response. It is also a return, and it is also a turning. Each year after 9/11, on our annual New York trip with the confirmation class, we visited Ground Zero. I watched it change each year from the awful rubble of the dust of so many dead and twisted metal to the beautiful pools of reflection where the makeshift names taped to chain link fences were etched in stone. Each year we said Kaddish, learning the story of another survivor, another first responder, who joined our group to make sure that our students would know about the lives that were lost that day, the lives that were changed that day. One year, about 10 years ago, we visited what was being called the Ground Zero Mosque. This was to be a community center, much like a JCCA, but for the Muslim community of lower Manhattan. It was going to be run by Muslim Americans who wanted to give a holy gathering space to the community that had suffered so. And so, much like a Jewish community center, they really wanted a gift, to make a gift to the community. I wanted our students to know about this place, to meet the people with such vision, the people building bridges who welcomed us into their space and greeted us beautifully, the kind of radical hospitality that we try to practice here. You know, I always give the students dollar bills to give for tzedakah as they journeyed the streets of New York on our trips. And most of our kids gave their dollars to build the center. Truth be told, I actually wanted to go, not just because I wanted the kids to see this wonderful building, this vision, this wonderful act of hospitality, but I also went as an act of resistance to those who opposed the center. Many groups opposed that center. We actually had to walk through protesters to get there. And the groups that opposed the center included our own Anti-Defamation League, the ADL. The director of the center appreciated our gesture with all of her heart, she said. A group of Jewish students, she said, could make all the difference. On this Shabbat Teshuvah, in an op-ed in the New York Times, the new director of the ADL apologized for what they did 10 years ago and said they were on the wrong side of history, that they were wrong. He made teshuvah on this Shabbat Teshuvah. He reminded us to take aleinu, to take upon us the call to a holy response, to a return to right and just paths. He reminded us when we are wrong to say that we are sorry and turn in our ways.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר ראשית. שלא עשנו כגויי הרצון, ולא שמענו כמשפחות הרמה. שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. אנחנו קוראים
ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא.
I have a nice meal before the holy day, nostalgia and taste. Soon after, we begin with the prayers. By late afternoon the next day, I will have had enough prayers. By then, I will not have eaten in almost 24 hours. Then I might begin with visions. Enough prayers, I will be thinking. One prayer I will be left with by the time we get to remembering. There are more prayers yet before the day concludes. But for me, this will be the last prayer of the day and the deepest. 3 words in Hebrew: Baruch Dayan Ha'emet. 3 words in English: we miss you. Amen.
Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah. Be'alma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayachon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael. Ba'agala u'v'zman kariv ve'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabba mevarach le'olam olmei olmaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. Viet hadar, viet alei, viet alal, shemei de kudasha b'richu. La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechmata, da'amiran be'alma ve'imru amen. Yehi shlomo rabba min shemaya v'chayim, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'rmamav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Kol Yoshvei Tevel ve'imru. Amen.
Ve'imru, 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 amen. Ve'imru,
We feel you. We hope you can feel us, our love, our commitment, and our desire to make this a better year. Let this day of reflection, let this day of atonement lead to a time of at-one-ment when we feel each other. So we leave you with a blessing. We'll ask you to put your arms around each other wherever you are, whoever you're with. Put your arms around yourself if you are on your own. And we ask you to share this blessing with all the people whose lives you touch. Yevarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha.
When the upper worlds and the lower worlds find each other,
Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka.
it will be a secret, generous wisdom.
Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom.
And every individual will be known as a version of God.
Amen. An easy fast. Gamar Chatima Tova. May you all be inscribed in the book of life for another year.
Ooh.